Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to get started. Thank you for coming to the Legal Help Portal. Very excited. A lot of people in the state have been working on this project for several years now.
Yep.
And they are just about ready to go live. I had nothing to do with it.
Is that a disclaimer?
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and let them speak. Before we do, handouts are up here. Does anybody need a handout? I'll pass them out. And don't forget to give me your Supreme Court number so I can get you some CLE credit for this class. There's also a list of programs for the rest of the year up here, as well as bookmarks. Next month we're doing a repeat of our expungement and sealing program that we did a couple months ago. It was completely sold out, so we're offering it again if any of you didn't make the cut last time. Go ahead and sign up at the desk. So I'm going to turn it over to Susan Joe and Rachel Harris, and they will tell you all about the portal. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name's Rachel Harris. I am the project coordinator and content manager for Ohio Legal Help. Ohio Legal Help is a new website. Just quick disclaimer. If you go to ohiolegalhelp.org right now, it's not going to be this site. So if you pull out your phone and try to follow along, don't do that. The site will be launching sometime very soon.
Maybe tonight.
Maybe today. We're a little in flux.
We have a punch list for go live.
Right. But as Angela alluded to, we've been working on this for about 2 years. And the way that this project got started, here, I'm going to quickly run through, was through the convening of a steering committee. So this project was born from the 2015 Supreme Court Access to Justice Task Force report. One of the recommendations was building a statewide litigant portal to connect self-represented litigants with information, forms, and organizations and resources that could assist them. We had a very engaged steering committee that met quarterly with representatives from the Supreme Court, the Ohio Judicial Conference. We had a domestic relations judge and a municipal court judge, the Ohio State Bar Association, the Alliance of Ohio's Legal Aids, the Ohio Library Council, which are the public libraries, as well as the Consortium of Ohio County Law Libraries, and the Ohio Domestic Violence Network. So through the visioning and kind of evaluation of the points of view of all of these stakeholders, we put together a project plan, and then about a year ago, a little bit more than a year and a half maybe now, we engaged a firm to do a very user-centered design and kind of front end for the website. And the way that we developed the design of the site was based upon a lot of data that we collected. So one of the first things the steering committee put together was the Voice of the Stakeholder survey. We had over 1,100 respondents that included judges, magistrates, clerks, you see, all of the important folks who make up the legal ecosystem in Ohio. We found a couple of key things, that there was strong stakeholder support for a statewide portal and information website, that most folks were keenly aware of the impact of what we call the justice gap on low-income Ohioans and self-represented litigants. So when we refer to the justice gap, we think about, there are limited legal services available for very low-income folks. But there's a huge breadth of folks who have trouble accessing attorneys or accessing the justice system that may be above that. So that's what we mean when we say justice gap.
And folks know that even for the folks that are in that 125% of federal poverty, which legal aid folks generally serve, that can't meet those needs either. Generally about 80% of even the, what I would say, very low income,
right.
Those needs can't be met just because there just aren't enough legal aid attorneys.
Right.
So, there need to be other solutions.
Yeah, and there's about 2 million folks in Ohio.
There's about 2.1 at 125%. And then there's about like 1.7, 1.8 at 100% of poverty.
So stakeholders kind of identified the typical challenges that folks face when they're unrepresented, I want to point out the confusion and lack of knowledge of the court system. This was a really key theme that kept appearing throughout our research, but it was kind of first pointed out to us by the legal stakeholders. And they also identified the highest areas of civil legal need, which were family and domestic relations, housing, and consumer and debt. So our next kind of large research project was the Voice of the Consumer survey. This is something that a lot of more like corporate commercial products will go through before they roll out a new website. We believe that we are quite unique in doing this in the in the nonprofit space. So before we built anything, we surveyed over 800 Ohioans. They were from, I believe, like 75 of the 88 counties in Ohio. So we had a broad geographic reach. We oversampled low-income folks. So 50% of these over 800 respondents made less than $30,000 a year. And we asked them about experiences they've had with the legal system. We asked them about how they do research and kind of their perceptions of the legal system. Cost and confusion about the legal system were by far the biggest access hurdles. 61% of Ohioans said that they saw a need for more legal education, and the areas of civil legal need that they identified actually matched the areas that were identified by the legal stakeholders. So that was really a great reassuring finding. It gave us a very clear direction to focus on for our content. And it also kind of highlighted a few strategies that people respond well to. So particularly directness and simplicity. We got a lot of, I think, funny quotes on the public's perception of courts and the legal system. We really took to heart eliminating the use of legal mumbo jumbo, making sure that we were transparent about costs. So using our website is free to all Ohioans. It's not means tested, and we want to give folks kind of contextualized information about the services that are available to them, for example, through the private bar lawyer referral services. And then the final item is security protection. So it's always been very important to us to protect our consumers, but this also really highlighted the fact that we need to be transparent about that with our users. So when we go through in a few moments, you will see every bit of information that we ask our user for, we explain to them why we're asking for it. And we believe that this is going to not only increase folks' utilization of the site because they understand why we're asking for things. We found that people are more comfortable once they know why I'm asking what county they live in. And we also just feel that it's a best practice in terms of protecting our users. All right, so I'm gonna hand this over to Susan, who is going to take you through kind of a example user journey.
Okay. So not a real mouse. Okay, let's see how this works. All right. Okay. Well, first of all, let me quickly introduce myself and who I work for. So I wear two hats. I'm general counsel for the Ohio Legal Assistance Foundation. And I think most folks are attorneys in the room. Is that right? Okay. I see a lot of nodding. So if you register with the Supreme Court of Ohio and you give your bank information for your IOLTA, or if you have a title company, your IOTA account, that's the Ohio Legal Assistance Foundation. We work with the court with respect to attorney registration and essentially get the information related to IOLTA. But in our other role, we're also the Access to Justice Foundation for Ohio. And in that role, as part of our strategic plan, because this was actually something that came out of the Supreme Court's Access to Justice Task Force, in 2015, Chief Justice O'Connor put together a task force to look at the justice gaps in Ohio. And found similar results, right? And one of the key recommendations from the Access to Justice Task Force was actually to build something similar to Ohio Legal Help. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out the PowerPoint. Is that?
Yep, if you hit escape.
Yeah.
I've hit it here. I'm trying to think. There we go. Perfect. So this is Ohio Legal Help, and it should go live within probably the next couple of days. And then it will actually resolve to ohiolegalhelp.org. Right now, it's sitting where it's being hosted, which is on a Pantheon site. So if folks are quickly trying to type that in, I wouldn't, but because it's password protected right now. But in terms of the site itself, it's very simple, because folks said, remember, directness and simplicity. So it's very simple. And this looks like a typical homepage, right? It has cards and tiles and very simple. However, what we also learned in our testing and then in speaking with stakeholders, especially in Southeast Ohio and Appalachia, they said it has to be for mobile. So this website is actually built for your phone, but it is not an app. We did not want to have any additional barriers. So sometimes to access an app, you have to go to a store. Even if it's free, they require a credit card. We want to remove any barrier to access. So while this looks like an app and acts like a mobile-first app on your phone, it is really a website that we've designed in a way to work best on your telephone. And so when folks go to it, when it is live, folks will see, and it's a little harder to navigate here. And this isn't a touch screen, right?
No, yeah.
Okay.
Then it's,
Yeah. Why won't
I think it
it?
would have to do that, like, trackpad bit.
Oh,
For some reason, this machine doesn't have the scrolling bar. Yeah, we'll have to. Yeah.
sorry. I'm gonna have to hold down the whole time. It'll be fine. Anyways, so now it's really emulating my phone. But we expect folks to scroll. I can't scroll the whole way down because of the laptop I'm working on. But normally it would just scroll and you could go down. Actually, I can start all over, and so I can scroll. But what you'll see here are essentially what we consider and call tiles. Now, you're going to see something unusual here in that what you're seeing as the first tile or card is disaster recovery. And the reason we put that is for the 10 counties in Ohio that have been impacted by the tornadoes. So for instance, if you live in Montgomery County and were to go through that, it would take you to information on how to both get assistance from the Red Cross. Right now there's assistance being provided through ODJFS in those counties, and also there's assistance that's being provided through Legal Aid as a central hub that is not means tested for the moment. And so because of that, and because again this is a website where we can quickly get information up, since we knew we're going live this week, and this is still something very current to folks, especially as Ohio's waiting its FEMA declaration, we want to get it up as one of the first things that folks saw, so that if they're coming to help, they know that that's one of the things they can get questions for. But in terms of what I would say the core site itself, it's actually tiled in the way that folks said they were interested. Folks said they wanted to know family, housing, money and debt, pretty much in that order. Because we know that folks scroll until they figure out what they want. We want to get folks to what they need first. And family was by far, family law and questions around family law were by far the most requested area of law that we cover, and by quite a bit. And so we wanted to make sure that folks saw that. Now this is for folks with, need to go up. Yeah. So this is for folks with, we build primarily focusing on needs that maybe a low income or moderate income household might need. And so we also built out health and public benefits as one of the initial cards. Crime and traffic, because the highest volume of cases actually run through the criminal court. I am so sorry, having all sorts of issues today. And so we wanted to make sure that folks, can you give me my, yeah. Yeah. Yes, I travel with my own mouse.
For this very reason.
For this very reason. Yeah, assuming that,
Yeah, do we have a question maybe?
yeah, let's take questions
Yeah.
while we're trying to figure out the technology.
Yeah, is there going to be interaction with FEMA in the disaster recovery?
With FEMA itself,
Yeah, if someone's applying for.
yeah, so the way that, yeah, I think the way that it will work is that, because what we're going to do is get folks to where they can get assistance with FEMA applications, for instance, but we won't have direct interaction with FEMA. But for instance, I know that the Ohio State Bar Association, through its Young Lawyers, is working with Legal Aid of Western Ohio that covers all of the 10 counties that are impacted, to essentially marshal pro bono attorneys, so that once they get, let's say, someone who's struggling with a FEMA application, they can direct them to a pro bono attorney. So the whole idea of the portal is to make sure that people get information when they need it and when they, and at 2 a.m. in the morning, right? And so, and what the beauty of Legal Aid of Western Ohio is, they actually have online intake, which is also available 24/7. And so they'll have the ability to take questions at any time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. Like a real mouse. There we go. Sorry. Anyways, so family, housing. And again, we wanted to do disaster recovery because we know that that's an issue that is very current right now for folks. I was actually just speaking with folks in Dayton, and we had just gotten this up for the demo. And I hadn't actually thought about the fact that we were speaking with folks in Dayton, and it just really struck them in terms of the fact that the portal is going to try to meet needs as they come up and not be static, right? And also, it's going to be a way for folks to receive attorneys through their attorneys to receive referrals through their bar association as well. One of the key stakeholders in this was actually the Ohio State Bar Association, and we've also now spoken with all of the Metro Bar Associations, and also have started engaging the smaller county bar associations as well. Essentially, if you have a lawyer referral system, and that's associated with the bar, we've spoken with you. And so I'm actually going to take folks through. So it's a typical website, except it's mobile first. And this is the home page. We actually don't expect most folks to come through the homepage, because I'm assuming, like, you're like most of folks, and we think that's about 60 to 70%. Most folks start at Google. They start at their browser, and they say, you know, actually I think one of the most often searched terms is lawyer near me, right? Because when we talked with our SEO expert, he says that folks aren't thinking like a lawyers, which we knew. They're really thinking, I need a lawyer, and so they Google lawyer near me, right? Or they might be Googling something like eviction, or maybe they're Googling something like divorce or custody, but they're not obviously thinking of like the specific legal term. We heard this from librarians as well. We had the pleasure of working with the Library Council along with the law libraries, and some law libraries are open to the public and some are not. But what we heard from those folks is that they said, you know, people come in, they ask questions all sorts of different ways. And so we're trying to kind of meet those needs. But anyways, when we also surveyed folks said that they wanted a lawyer, legal information forms or letters, which kind of covers it all. So, folks said they really wanted legal information and then followed by lawyers. And I think part of that is the belief that lawyers just aren't affordable, right? And so they wanted to have something that they felt that they could afford, and they knew that the legal information would be free. Okay. So what we did here, because this is mobile first, and this is what we call a very simple guided assistance to get them to the right legal topic. And so we tried to put this in a way that we think the way that folks would talk, right? My landlord is trying to evict me. My landlord won't make repairs. We're in Ohio. I'm worried about foreclosure. So, you know, while foreclosures have gone down, there's still tens of thousands of foreclosures in Ohio. So what we tried to do was think through what are some common issues. I'm actually going to take folks through a slightly different pathway than is in there, but I'm actually going to take folks through my landlord won't make repairs. Now, the first thing that we do is we actually ask, now we tell questions are optional, we actually want to know what county you live in. So I'm going to put Franklin here. And then we're going to ask what city or village. And the reason that we had to go to a city or village is that municipal courts are actually governed in some ways, like which municipal court you have is what village you live in. And as we've gone on this journey, and even though I've been in almost all 88 counties, some counties have no cities. In fact, some counties only have villages. And so we wanted to make sure that we captured basically where everyone lived. And so I'm going to put Franklin and Columbus. And then we asked, it sounds like you'd like help with getting your landlord to make repairs. We then ask if you'd like to answer a few questions about yourself. Now, the reason that we ask is that folks said that when we did our user testing, they may or may not want to do this, and we didn't want to have a barrier to someone getting information. So I'm going to be the person that says, I'll give you the county I live in, but I don't want to answer any more questions about myself. So then you get to something that we call internally a topic page, but we're treating it like a hub and with spokes coming up from it. Because what we also learned from our testing is that everybody is a little different, but folks kind of fall into, like I'd say, two major groups, right? There are the folks that are the scanners, which I think is most of us on most days, right? You're going to scan. You're going to go through and go, is this what I think I need, right? And so you might read this abstract and go, yep, I'm having problems with, let's say, with my stove. I've told my landlord he won't fix it, so I go down and I'm like, okay, this is good, this is what I want. So what we do is we tell them up front, your landlord's responsible, but we tell them examples because folks need examples, right? But then we also say, because you know what? Landlords come in all shapes and sizes, and so do tenants, right? And so you want to make sure and remind tenants that, well, what are the kind of repairs that your landlord is required to make, right? Because everything, there's the spectrum from my heat is not working to, let's say, this is scuffed up, right? And sometimes tenants, it's kind of in between. So what we try to do is we give folks an opportunity to look at, hey, what kind of repairs is your landlord required to make? And we also say, hey, you have some responsibilities as well, right? You have to pay your rent on time and in full, and you shouldn't damage the home apart from normal wear and tear. But we then say, hey, here are the common repairs that landlords need to make. And what we did here was we actually took the statute and tried to make it more readable, right? And so that's what we've done here. So what we've done is taken the statute and made it plain language. I'm actually going to go back. Back button works here. Back button on your phone will work in a similar fashion as well. Okay, we then step it. We tell them, hey, did you tell your landlord about the repair? Because, we don't want tenants to write letters and file rent escrow actions if you haven't actually picked up the phone and asked, right? Because the idea here is, what are the steps, right? And we also tell them there might be an online form, right? Because more and more landlords are moving to that. And then if that doesn't work, then we tell them you can write a letter. And then we tell them, actually, we have a form to make it simple for you. And then we tell them some other tips. And then we say, here's what happens if your landlord still hasn't made repairs. But because of the fact that sometimes this is where the process is going to stop, we don't actually give folks the full rent escrow process here. Because one, what we learned is that folks can absorb maybe about 400 to 500 words of text at a time, if that. And in fact, some of our testers only read the bullet points. So we know that as well. Or read the headlines. And so because of that, we try to make sure that all the key things are in the headlines, right? Because that's kind of, folks engage in this behavior, and we knew that. But we also, for instance, will link folks to legal help and lawyers. So remember we talked about how we're going to link folks to their bar association to get assistance, and so they are here as well, and the Ohio State Bar Association. And then the forms and letters, you'll see landlord make repairs. And then we also link to local government and community resources. And so the Franklin County Municipal Court Self-Help Resource Center is a resource for tenants and for landlords here. And so it's actually one of the first cards, because it's a resource for folks that are potentially have landlord-tenant issues. And so we want to make sure that where good community resources exist, that we send them and direct them. And then the Columbus Metropolitan Library because they've agreed to be a navigation point. Yeah, Grandview Public, and we have a lot of public libraries. So the resources here, they have all essentially agreed that they understand that their folks are going to show up, right? And so Rachel has really been doing trainings online to essentially show folks, hey, this is how you help someone navigate the website. And so this is essentially the hub with what the links are, what we call detail pages. Now, I do want to show one of the resource cards. I'm going to do that with Columbus Bar Association Lawyer Referral. So if you click on any of these, what we call resource cards internally. So, and again, mobile first, so big buttons. I can click anywhere, and it's going to take me where I need. It's actually going to take you to the Columbus Bar Association, know where you are. It says what to do. And then the first thing that we do is we say, how do you request services? Because that's really what folks want. And some folks are going to stop here. But if they want, and they can't read it right then, they can text, because it has built-in text capabilities, so it'll pull up a message on your phone, just like when you want to text. You can email it. You can also copy the link, so like you can tell, if you're one of those folks like myself, that's just like, what did it do it? We actually tell you. So we learned that as well, so we give you a little hint. It's been copied. You're done. And we have printing, because you know what? Some folks said they might want to print this page. We don't want to, we kind of have this 80-20 rule. If we think, 20% more of the population is going to do it, we're going to try to build functionality around it, right? But at the same time, if it's going to be like 10% of the population, we got to really think, right? Because we want to make sure that we're building to most, but not all. And then we give the hours, and then the address, contact information. If you're on your phone and you clicked on this, it would actually pull up the number on your phone. So it's all that built-in functionality. And then we actually did this for a lot of reasons. One, because in some instances you actually get the court. Like for instance, if I was on the eviction page, it would actually give the Franklin County Municipal Court. Now, we are not so nimble that we would have said they were closed today. Unless of course someone told us, and then we can actually pop it on the page. But the reason that we have this Google map linked is because folks said, I don't know where it is. I don't know where to park. And so while we provide links to the website, if this is what you have on your phone, you can go in, like the way you do, like when you're looking for something, you can figure, okay, that's a parking garage. That's something that I can do. And then because we want feedback, we say, was this information helpful? So I'm going to stop there before I go to the forms. Do folks have any questions? Okay. All right. And then so Rachel, why don't you do forms? And then I do want to show a little bit more of how the resources are coded. Yep. And then I have
Thank you. All right. So, an interesting part of this project was thinking about forms. So you saw kind of the three options we give folks: the lawyers, legal information, and forms, to make sure that everything is mobile first and makes sense for the user on the phone. And to kind of address that challenge, we ended up building our own document assembly tool. So you all are probably familiar with document assembly tools. I know a lot of law firms have access to very robust ones. We wanted to kind of strip it back and make it simple, and give people just what they need to complete the form and move on to their next step. So here we have the form page. We explained to folks that this is the letter to send your landlord to get repairs. You're going to need to physically print it out and mail it to them. We give people a little bit more guidance around, hey, send it to the address where you pay your rent. And we let people know that they can fill it out online using what we call our form assistant. Big, again, clickable blue box. If someone wants to see what this actually is before they start, they have that option. So we have the preview form here. Again, we're on a phone. So one of the challenges in doing document assembly on a phone is look at that PDF. I can't read that. And that is what, 2-3 feet across right there. So while we understand that some people will address that barrier and go on their phone and zoom in and kind of do the horrible workaround. Most folks aren't going to do that. And so instead, we have our form assistant. All right. So the first thing we do is we make sure that this letter is actually going to be helpful. We don't want anyone to waste their time assembling a document that's not actually going to help them with their problem. So here we make people check off that they do in fact live in a rental home, that they are up to date on their rent, that they have problems that their landlord is required to fix. This links back actually to that page that Susan showed you earlier, because we know that maybe not everyone will have read all of the information before deciding to write a letter. So again, we want to kind of intercept them and give them an opportunity to look over that information again, and also that they let their landlord know about the problem. So yeah, we have this help text here. We also have the ability to make this help text appear based on the answers. So we have some other forms, for example, divorce without children we have on Form Assembly, and if you answer yes to the question, I have minor children, help text pops up and says, hey, this isn't the right form for you. So it's nice to have that kind of extra layer of a check in there, assuming that sometimes maybe not everyone is going to read as closely as they should. And moving on to our next page. This is just very sorry about that, Susan. Very straightforward kind of form, online form that I'm sure that we all have to fill out every time we order anything from Amazon. Next page. So we try to break things out step by step, so we're not overwhelming someone with a long form they have to scroll through on their phone. We're piecing out the information.
So we're writing a letter to our former landlord.
No, to our...
That was 10 West Broadway.
Oh, yeah, sorry, that was our old office. The other funny thing is when we're testing these, so my landlord's name is Jeff, and I always put, that's not his last name, but I always put Jeff in my landlord letters, and one day Susan came into my office, she's like, is your landlord named Jeff? I was like, yeah, why? She's like, because I get an email every time you test this letter, and I'm starting to worry that Jeff's not a good landlord. He is. He's fine.
Try to send me a message.
Yeah. On this file. All right. Again. Fridge. Yeah. All right. So we're done. We've given the form assistant all the information it needs to generate a letter. Again, we jump in and let people know that there are things they will need to do after they print out this form. It's not enough to, hit submit and the system does not automatically mail this to their landlord. We try to make that very clear.
Some folks think that.
Yes, we're all very, in this age of automation, we want to make sure people know that there are steps they need to take. They need to go to the post office and ask for certified mail. They need to make copies and keep them for their records. So I hit submit. And now we have another critical question for someone on their phone, which is, how do you want to save your document? So again, we saw that little PDF on the screen that is impossible to use. It is possible to save a PDF to your smartphone, and I'm sure for some people it's possible to find it, but for the life of me, I really struggle with that. And we were not about to invite our users to go through the work of filling this form out and then having them download the form to their device and they won't be able to find it. So we do recommend folks email the form to themselves if they are on a cell phone. If you're on a desktop computer, it's a little bit easier, I think, to see the form get downloaded and drag it off to another location. So here I am going to, if I said I wanted to email the completed form, we capture their email address, hit send, it automatically goes to their inbox. We also point out to folks that this is a landlord letter, so you maybe are not going to need to keep going back to this. Hopefully you don't. But if you do, it's there for your records, especially with something like a divorce filing. You're definitely going to want to be able to go back to that PDF form, check through it, maybe print out additional copies, things like that.
Question?
Yes.
That email,
Yes.
it says enter the email address the person wants to send. That's the email, like, if you want to send it to yourself, not to the landlord. right?
That's correct.
I can see people
Yes, that's a good point.
doing that.
That is a good point. I believe that the thought process there was that we want to make sure that folks know that the email address that this goes to is where the completed form will end up. But yes, I will take that note. We're not live yet, so this is
We're
great
not live
feedback.
yet.
If anyone else sees anything like that,
'Cause
please let me
I'm
know.
going to connect
Right.
the certified
Yeah.
mail
Right.
with that.
Right.
No, that's good.
That's good. That's very good. Thank you. And again, we're not doing that. I'm glad I showed that to you. So let's say today we're downloading the completed form just so you all can see it. So here we have, again, our next steps. We repeat our next steps as often as we possibly can. Scrolling down, here you have the actual letter. So we have my address, my landlord. This here, we have space for someone to sign, and then we also have a space for them to indicate the day that it was delivered if they're delivering it by hand. So again, this is a very simple document to assemble. We have a couple of different letters on this document assembly that are mostly landlord-tenant related. For launch, which is happening
soon as-
any moment, as soon as I get that changed. We will also have the Supreme Court domestic relations forms for divorce without children. That is, as you can imagine, quite a bit longer.
And it adds.
It does add. It adds. It puts your name and all the caption information incorrectly across all the forms. It does all sorts of good things, but it takes a lot longer to show you guys.
It shows all the math, so like
Yeah.
folks are familiar at all with the property affidavit, the income expenses. Now through all of it, we tell folks, go talk to an attorney.
Yes.
But we know some folks won't, so we've tried to make it as user-friendly as possible. We know actually that addition is not necessarily easy for everyone, and those forms have a lot of additions, and so we've built that into the coding.
Mhm.
Does it have a child support worksheet?
It
So
does not right
it
now.
does not, because we were smart and did not do divorce with kids. There were a number of reasons why we didn't do divorce without. We did divorce without kids versus divorce with kids, right? I think that one, and you folks know this as the practitioners in the room, anytime you involve children, it is much more complicated, regardless of child support or the worksheet. But there's just the parenting plan, there's visitation, there's all of that, right? And we need to carefully think through how we do that. And we want to make sure, just as in this process, the judges were involved. We have the uniform domestic relations forms, but that's only a starting point. It's how does it actually work then? How do you actually explain that? Because one of the things, we don't have time today, but like one of the things, for instance, we have been user testing the divorce without kids. And for instance, in a divorce complaint, regardless of children, no children, you have to select the reasons, you have to select the grounds, right? And that has been hard for folks.
Yep.
Because we write really horribly as attorneys. And trying to explain incompatibility is actually not easy.
All right. So this actually kind of wraps it up on forms. We include this kind of step-by-step instruction with each form we generate, just to make sure that folks know. And we actually have the capability to make that specific to the jurisdiction. So that's kind of one of our next steps, is saying, hey, if this was a divorce filing and I was in Franklin County, it would say, hey, there's a domestic relations help desk or help center, I believe, here in Franklin County. It's at this address. Maybe stop in before you file this. And give people kind of that specific direction based on where they are geographically. Yep. And that's been a really great outcome of this project. we get kind of jokes nationally about, you know,
They called us out at a national
Yeah.
conference for our non-unified court.
about the diversity of the legal system in Ohio. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful mosaic.
So they said, at least you're not Ohio or Texas.
Yeah, so, yeah,
Wow.
that was rough. Susan and I were sitting like 2 rows back from the front, and we were just like, oh,
And we're like,
that was
we're
rude.
from Ohio, people.
So that was very challenging, obviously, to kind of figure out the resources available across the state. But we do think that that's going to be something that's really valuable because, you know, it's not like this is a brand new concept. People have been doing form assembly, people have been doing online self-help information. But making sure that the information is relevant and correct to the user is kind of where we have I would say like made our mark and tried to really be focused. So speaking to that, if at any point you guys are ever on this website and you see something,
Yeah. We want
say something.
feedback.
Yeah,
Really.
please reach out to us. It's really important to us that this information is accurate for everyone in the state. And we know sometimes we, you know, could have made assumptions or anything along those lines. So we really welcome your feedback.
Can you take folks through, looks like we have a little time, to the family law?
Yeah.
Go back and just to family law.
Yep.
Yeah.
Come on. All right.
Yep. And so,
gonna say I'm not.
click yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so if we want to make sure, we work with Ohio Domestic Violence Network. And so they want to make sure that if someone was in danger, they could get to resources right away. Now, we also tell people though, but if you think you're in an okay place, hit continue. There. So what we did here was, one of the things that the ODB had said is that sometimes folks file CPOs when they shouldn't. And so they actually asked us not to put the CPO form on. And we listened because we're not doctors at all, but we do believe in do no harm, right? And so we're trying to think of that. So, and Rachel, you can show them
Yeah.
the site.
Yeah. So, yeah, this page is a little bit different in terms of we have a little bit more text because we wanted to be sure to be sensitive and kind of go through potential possibilities. But on the flip side, we did stay in line with our other content and making sure that it's action oriented. So encouraging folks to call 911 if they need to, encouraging folks to talk to a domestic violence expert, and encouraging folks to speak to an attorney.
You want to click
sorry.
on the local government?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the other thing, hallmark of the site, is that if you're on your phone and you click on one of those links, you're actually on the same page, but we're going to
Yeah.
pull you down to where you need to be.
Yes, and since I had already answered the question about what county I was in, this is fully populated with the relevant Franklin County resources. So we have the domestic court resources, we have ODVN, and then we have Franklin County has a really robust set of resources for domestic violence. So unfortunately, not every county is going to have, you know, this huge collection, but in Franklin County we do, and that's great. So it gives everyone a sense of the community groups that are available to help them. We give them their 24-hour crisis hotline. Again, since it's a domestic violence shelter, we actually don't have the address on this page, but give people the sense that that they do serve Columbus.
So that's one of the decisions we made. So what we tried to do is work with all the stakeholders and actually, if, like, listen, right, we don't, you know, I'd be lying if I say I don't have like ownership, you know, in this site in terms of wanting it, because it reflects so much of the work that the team has done. But we really, you know, our pride is not in that, right? Our pride is making sure that it meets the needs of stakeholders, you know, lawyers, folks who are gonna, end users who are low income on site, but also like the domestic violence shelters, right? We want to be sensitive to that. So we knew that we're not going to put where they are because that would be wrong. And so what we did was we worked with everyone to say, how do you want to be contacted? And so that's what we've done here. Yeah, and so, I mean, they all kind of work like this.
Yeah.
What we ask for information is the legal help and lawyers.
Yep.
Is it? Yeah. But Rachel, do you want to put in the?
Oh, yeah, I can put in the
Now, when we
demographics.
went through this, we didn't actually put in income information, but go ahead, yeah.
Yeah.
And see the income?
That doesn't, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's fine.
yeah. See where the income is? So we're, again, not making folks do math. Each of those lines represents a different level of federal poverty. So at less than 1,800, for that family size, you're at 125%. So if you select and update, now it's going to give you all the means tested resources. What we didn't want to do was just to say,
Yeah.
you know, call legal aid. That doesn't make sense.
Right.
Right?
Right, and then in addition to the means tested resources, there are resources available to these specific demographic groups.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that I am
Yep.
age 60 or older, and
Go ahead, 16. Oh, yeah.
The mouse. I'm not used to see. This is
Yeah, different, right?
yeah.
Right.
So now when I go to Legal Help and Lawyers, I have the Legal Aid Society of Columbus and Pro Seniors. Yes.
Was that a yearly figure or a monthly?
That was monthly,
Monthly.
and it says that on
Oh, okay, all right.
the yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so what we've done here is, these are the means tested resources.
Right.
Although Pro Seniors is not means tested, but they put they were over the age of 60, that's why they're getting it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's a simple website that has a lot of complexity behind it. We have actually curated, at this point, 1,300 resources. Folks told us we couldn't do it, so we're like, we'll do it. But there's 1,300 resources, including all of the courts. And any folks from Dayton in this room? Okay, good. So Montgomery County, the Montgomery County Municipal Court serves Montgomery County, but the Dayton Municipal Court serves the city of Dayton, which is in Montgomery County. And then they're both at the same courthouse. So,
not
but
confusing
we
at all.
actually had to curate the data in a way that if you're in Dayton, say in Montgomery County, you got Dayton Municipal Court. But if you said you're in Montgomery County, but you're in Beaver Creek, you got Montgomery
Right.
County Municipal Court.
Right.
So my team now knows all the intricacies of how the municipal courts are set up, including which half of a county links to this municipal court and which half of the other county links to another municipal court, and sometimes they're separated by a highway. So,
Yes. Yeah.
which is very good for the folks who are locally in Jackson County, but maybe not so good for us. So we had to actually figure all that out.
Yeah, and
But
the
we
same-
did that so that you did not have to.
Right, and the same thing applies to the forms. So for the most part right now, our forms are not location specific. We do actually have the rent escrow applications up for, I believe, Franklin, Cuyahoga, Hamilton, and actually Montgomery, which is how we came across that little quirk. So if you're on the rent escrow page, and you live in Dayton, you're not going to get the Montgomery County Municipal Court form because that is not the right form for you, despite the fact that a layperson might read that and say, oh yeah, I live in Montgomery County, that makes sense.
We're actually going to work with Montgomery
Yeah.
County. It's probably the same form.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm sure.
We have
But-
so many tasks for Go Live
Yeah.
that we haven't verified that yet.
Yeah.
But to be fair, the clerks have been fabulous. I mean, law librarians, the law librarian that's actually on the steering committee actually did all the research for us on all sorts of different websites related to public benefits. It's been a fabulous team.
Yeah.
So this labor of love is going to go live sometime in the next 24 hours. And it will actually resolve at ohiolegalhelp.org. Now our coders are saying fancy things like it'll take a few hours to propagate. Apparently it has to ping through all these servers first. But
Yeah.
eventually, probably over the weekend, if you go, it'll be there.
I have a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Sure.
When the people input the information, are there tracking cookies? Is any of the information being saved for the website for that person's like IP address or however they, it's saved for that
Sure.
person, number one? That's just part of my question.
Sure. Let me answer that first. So we took privacy very seriously. During the session, we're tracking you because we're giving you useful information like where you've been. When your session leaves, that we're getting confirmation back from our coders, but essentially we lose the data. we capture it only for the purposes of aggregating it so that for Google Analytics, but I can't actually understand like who was there. Like I don't
Right.
get that because we're actually stripping that data from the system.
And that data will also be stripped from your
Yep.
machine
Yep.
after half an hour.
Yep.
So even I, as an admin to this site, I have to log back in every 30 minutes, which, you know, might be a little annoying for me, but I think for the users, which is the whole point of this website, it's going to be very helpful.
Yeah.
So this is gonna have a password in for each individual?
Oh, no.
Create your own?
No, we made the decision for right now to just strip the information. Putting something behind a password protected wall, a lot of folks do it, but they don't do it well. And so that's actually our next phase. So the next phase of this is actually to put in a user registration, which folks will have the opportunity to do. But it's a whole different level of data security, especially with the type of personal things that folks may be putting into, let's say, a divorce pleading. And so that's probably a year out. I could quickly have put in a password protected area. That's not the way that our stakeholders, we want to operate in a way that's really transparent and that users have security in the site.
Does the website learn anything from the input?
Yep, it does.
Okay.
I may not know who
You
did
know
it.
you know what I'm asking, right?
So it's not AI.
It's not
We
AI,
learn.
but we learn.
Yeah.
And then we can gather the data to create natural language someday.
Yes.
But there is national work being done related to artificial intelligence, which is really just all statistics, but it's, the AI. There's actually a national company that, it's Microsoft. They work with the Legal Services Corporation, which is the federal funder of legal aid. Olaf is the state funder of legal aid. And they actually have built out an AI based upon data that they received on a data cache of about 1 million questions and how every day human beings ask legal questions and then the responses that were given so that the AI tool could learn. But they're not done. I mean, so that was 1 million questions and they still couldn't quite get it to work. Yeah. I guess we're
I
complicated.
know this is primarily civil, but I'm interested in how you handled the category criminal and traffic.
So the criminal traffic is primarily to give folks a quick overview and then get them to their local bar association or to get them to the public defender.
Yes. So basically here we say, we help Ohio residents resolve civil legal problems. We don't provide guidance on criminal cases. Here's the difference. That can be a challenge for lay people sometimes to understand what the difference is. And then explaining to folks that it's important to get a lawyer, especially if you're risking money or jail, obviously. And then we give folks the lawyer referral services and the public defender.
Now,
Is there any referral to the BMV website for traffic matters? An awful lot of
Yes.
information there.
Let me go back.
so right now it's under driver's license amnesty,
go.
but we are actually going to build out direct linkages.
Right.
out. And then this portion of this, we've not fully built it out. We'll also have information related to driver's license reinstatement, and then also related to it's sealing in Ohio because they changed it some time ago. No longer expungement, I think it's sealing. And then we'll have sealing as well. But in terms of where we had to prioritize and how to build out content, those are next in line for us. But everyone said get something on because getting folks to an attorney for a criminal issue, whether it's private or to the public defender, everyone said, please do it. And so if you go to lawyers,
I'm on Amnesty, yeah.
But the Amnesty will take you to Legal Aid, because Legal Aid is running clinics throughout the state in terms of driver's license reinstatement. Franklin County has had some fabulous ones that I've been able to participate in. Participated in one on a Saturday where we had over 500 people show up. Yeah. So then, yeah.
Isn't the amnesty over with the end of July?
It's over July 31st,
Yep.
but there are good
But we're
folks
going-
trying to work on an extension.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're going live.
And we're going live, yeah, within the next 24 hours. What did you want to show on
So
criminal?
on the Franklin County Public Defender, so, and folks are familiar with the public defender system, folks know it's complex. And so where you live matters in terms of who your public defender is or isn't. And so what we try to do is that if you live in a particular county, because sometimes it's court appointed, sometimes, Franklin County, it's Franklin County. Some is run by the state PD. And so what we try to do is that if we can get your information, we can get you to the right PD's office for your county. Yeah.
Yep.
Two questions, one more practical, the other more theoretical.
Sure.
I noticed in the original steering committee, although all these surveys say improving legal education is important to ordinary folks, I didn't see a representative of education
there is.
in Ohio. Was there?
Oh, representative, like a teacher?
Yeah, or like the Ohio Department of Education, or a curriculum committee for a school system. I guess, going back to an earlier life,
Sure.
I was once a school teacher, and I recall personally that junior high school students paid attention when, at one point, I started talking about kind of general principles of law and practical things
Right.
that they ought to know. So I guess my question would be, for example, should high school students get some kind of information about how to access this program before they're let loose on the roadways with their driver's license or what have you?
Sure. So we have not, like I would say, directly partnered with like public schools. We've certainly. So Rachel, do you want to go to the about the court? So go to Ohio Legal Help. One of the cards. To go into court. This is actually where we've built out the education in terms of like the court system.
That's actually a detail page.
Yeah. And because it's kind of the way that it was framed for us in the survey, that folks want to know more about the courts, going to court, what it means to, they want to know things like, how do I present evidence? Because they don't know what evidence is. And judges also said, for instance, please tell them evidence isn't everything. So what we tried to do is try to place it like on that level. And what we did in terms of, we contracted with writers, and in this case, this was a particular, someone who had actually worked for me, and so he did this pro bono. But he actually does a lot of training. So I used to be with the Attorney General's office, and he was one of our primary trainers for our new Assistant Attorneys General. And so we worked with him to create what we'd say is a very light curriculum at a very high level about what a witness is, and really is at that level. And also about courtroom decorum, right? And the role of the judge, your role as a plaintiff or a defendant, and we tried to kind of place it on that level. Now, I know that, for instance, the Ohio State Bar Foundation has been really emphasizing civics legal and civics education in general, right? Because it's general foundation of rule of law. And so I think they have been funding some grants to do that. And then the Sandra Day O'Connor, former justice, is a big proponent of civics education, as is Justice Judith French on the Ohio court. And so there's actually really wonderful online civics legal education modules that's available, like either through Sandra Day O'Connor or through other sites. And they've done fun things like make games, right? So I'm not going to do a game, although that's, I'm sure, fun. In terms of like, it's like they create a game of how to go to court, and because they've learned that through pedagogy, as I'm sure you're familiar with, is a way that especially young people learn. And so it's about a game of how to go to court. But then this happens. So what do you do? And then, judge says this. What do you do? And things like that.
Yeah. And so to speak to what Susan was directing me to, we have essentially, when folks say that they want more information about going to court, they have an option to get information on how to find an attorney, get information on how to prepare for court, and information about why they might want to hire an attorney. Essentially, those are the three options. And if they say they want to get ready to go to court, this is kind of the main hub that links off to, hey, this is just kind of some general do's and don'ts. We have how to speak in court, how to introduce evidence. We also have an embedded glossary, so here we try to kind of simplify terms that people may have heard a lot, like especially, I feel like evidence, if anyone's ever watched Law and Order, they think they know what evidence is, right? So we link them off to how that actually functions,
Yeah.
right? Same thing with witnesses, and then we do have an overall kind of primer on the Ohio
You
court
wanna click
system.
on the Ohio court
Yeah.
system?
Yep. So then here we explain the different levels. This is kind of more of the civics, angle, and explain to folks what common pleas courts handle versus what municipal courts handle. So yeah, we have the municipal and county courts. Yep. Yep.
I just saw something on the trial
Yep.
court level, but
Okay.
I didn't mean to make that noise, but
Oh, you're fine.
to me, almost should be the opposite when it says the third level of the trial courts.
Yeah.
When you think about the judicial system, the first place you go is
Right,
the
that's
trial
true.
court. In a way, that should be the
Yeah.
first level, and then everything goes
Yeah.
up.
Yep. Yep.
We got some of this language from the Ohio Supreme Court.
Court. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think it's all
They
perspective
probably got it from
taking.
Texas or something.
Probably got it from Texas. Let's blame all of our problems on
And the
Texas.
Supreme Court is a funder of the website.
They are. They
So
are.
we're gonna take their perspective. That's right.
Yes.
But I understand.
Yes, no,
Because
I understand.
for normal people, it's like, where do I go first?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You got it.
And let's just
Municipal
say,
court or the
while I
common
have
pleas.
been
Yeah.
in the Supreme Court, most folks aren't attorneys, and that's rarely a place that they're gonna go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. I think that we're running up on our time. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and if you are interested in being added to our email newsletter, I have a sign-up sheet for emails. Make sure that you didn't sign in on the email sign-in sheet. Make sure that for your CLE credit, you signed in on the sheet with your name on it already.
I'm Dan Franjo.
Are you able to?
I met once in